in a moment of weakness, tried taking his own life when he didn't realize that his son, who's been a struggling entrepreneur for many, many years, he could have just reached out to me and I could have helped him, and he didn't. When you're able to take your pain from the past and the things that you've had to learn the hard way and transition them to something that you can give back to the world, that's an incredible thing. My dad was the influence, for me becoming an entrepreneur. All my life I looked up to him and I was like, I'm gonna be him one day. I'm gonna be that guy who's gonna start that company. And in 2018, my dad called me up one day and he's like, I think I'm running out of money. I lost track of my cash flow and I don't know what to do. And he built, in 30 years, he built this whole company around, it was his identity, right? Family and everything. And long story short, a day later, he attempted to take his own life. It was really interesting to me at the time because, all my life, I was an entrepreneur starting at the age of 21. And I haven't needed a real job since then, but I've struggled so hard, trying different companies and nothing was ever working. And the irony of that whole situation was that the guy who I looked up to at that moment, who I thought was the strongest person in the world, in a moment of weakness, tried taking his own life when he didn't realize that his son, who's been a struggling entrepreneur for many, many years, he could have just reached out to me and I could have helped him, and he didn't. And so, he survived. But it really shed light on the whole idea of entrepreneurs. We're all entrepreneurs. When people look up to us sometimes and think that we're just these superheroes and stuff like that. And I can assure you, most of us aren't. And so when my dad did that and all that happened, it really made me realize the importance of these types of groups, right? It is so much easier to get through the hard shit when you've got people that you can relate to, right? And it's not misery enjoys company. It's more like when you're lost, it's really nice to know that you're not the only person who's suffering from that issue. And with my dad, for example, once he did the deed and I went back to Chicago to help out the business wasn't messed up. He just lost track of his cash flow. And there's a whole backstory to that, which I'll get into later when we do the next roundup, because I've started a new company based on the inspiration that came from that moment back in 2018. Just understanding that we're not alone and that it's okay to feel afraid. As an entrepreneur, some of you are starting new things and stuff like that. Don't ever be afraid to go out and ask for help. I found out at a certain point in my life that instead of being the guy who was crushing it, shit's messed up and I need help. And when I stopped putting on that fake facade of everything is awesome, it's amazing how much my life improved because now I wasn't living through this kind of lie. We all want people to see us in a certain way, but for me, being more honest about my current situation, stress fell off and all that type of stuff. And my dad, perfect example, where he built his whole life around being the business guy, and then his moment of weakness, he didn't know where to go out and get help. I think it's 87% of entrepreneurs have mental health issues, ranging from depression to anxiety to all sorts of stuff. And I really like that we're starting to get into this new era where we're like you were talking about, recognizing it and not stigmatizing it and really being open about it. It's an honor to be here, and Ali, thank you for what you set up here because it's absolutely incredible. And through all the stuff that you guys have been through, I have been through stuff in the last 10 years that I'm not even sure how I got past them, quite frankly, right? Some of these things were so hard. And what I've realized is that wisdom is the one shortcut in life you can't take. There's just areas in life where you can take shortcuts, but wisdom ain't one of them. And the only way you can earn wisdom is just to go through the pain. And the beauty, and what we were just talking about, when you're able to take your pain from the past and the things that you've had to learn the hard way and transition them to something that you can give back to the world, that's an incredible thing. One of the quotes that got me through an insane amount of difficult moments was a quote from Ben Horowitz from a book called The Hard Thing About Hard Things. And in the book, he talks about two things. One, there's always a move to make. So, whatever you guys are doing in your life, if stuff gets hard, close your eyes and just tell yourself there is always a move to make. Fear is going to try to prevent you from making the move, but there's always a move to make. So number one, there's always a move to make. Number two, just like a NASCAR driver or a Formula One car driver, there's always a wall. But when you're driving, you're not focusing on the wall. You're focusing on the path, yes. And so I've adopted that kind of way of thinking in my own life, which is that the wall is always there. It's always there. Just focus on the path, put your nose down, keep focusing. The reason why you're not supposed to look at the wall is you crash. Yeah, exactly, yeah. So in life, the wall is there for all of us. It really is. but just keep focusing straight ahead and don't look at the wall. And lastly, life is going to be always full of challenges, as we all know. And that's why it's so important to keep perspective. Things can always be worse, even if they're bad. And that's when you have to really revert back to gratitude. And when things got really hard for me, I would always try to revert back to gratitude, because all of a sudden, when you can practice gratitude and you feel grateful about something, even if it's something small, it's crazy how everything else, all the adult stuff that we have to deal with that makes our lives kind of hard, just kind of disappears.